Good evening. Welcome into the Illini Inquirer Podcast. It's Jeremy Werner back in Illinois, and it is Derek Piper out in Seattle. First trip, I believe, for Derek Piper out in Seattle, and first trip for the Illini there. The broadcast was harping on this. I think it's been almost 100 years since they have been there, and they find a way to get a win. Derek, it was ugly. It wasn't what we saw a couple nights ago in Oregon. They blew a 13 second half lead there, 13-point, and then they had a 17-point lead really out of the gates here, but you knew this would get a little closer at some point. You knew this one wouldn't be so easy, but 18 years later, Derek, they get revenge on Brandon Roy and the Washington Huskies with an 81-77 win. Just overall thoughts out of the gates here.
Yeah, like you said, it had a feeling like this could be more of a grinded out, not as easy type of win going into this game. Although early on, you storm out to a 17-point lead. You got a third of the crowd here. I think the Seattle Illini Club, who Brad shouted out in the post game, really turned out. I tweeted about a family. You had the dad in the Jazz, Darren Williams. You had the daughter in the Kendall Gill Sonics.
Sonics.
Yeah, I know, right? Sonics unis. Just classic, epic. But yeah, it took some grit. Of course, you had to make some mistakes, like leaving DJ Davis open for threes to allow them to get back into the game, and then another inbounds pass that is going to leave fans still just moaning and groaning about those plays. So, but afterwards, for KJ to step up and to make a couple big plays down the stretch, and Trey to make up for throwing it away, ripping it out of the hands of Trey Davis and getting on the ground for a tie up, and you get the ball. So they did what they needed to do to close. You got to be able to find a way to win games that aren't pretty, to be in the Big Ten title race. And right now, Illinois at 3-1, going back home off the 2-0 West Coast trip is early. There's a lot of basketball left, but early in that conversation very firmly.
Yeah, you would have thought this would have been the pretty game for Illinois, Derek, but this ended up being the ugly one. But it kind of goes to script. But I mean, it took an epic performance by DJ Davis, right? I mean, I thought Illinois out of the gates just defensively had Washington kind of out of its wits. And then Davis finally makes that run. But what they did on Great Ossenberg was fantastic. 9 points, did most of it at the free throw line, but forcing him to the free throw line is usually a pretty good strategy there. They just didn't shoot the ball very well. I mean, at the end of the day, 5 of 26, 19% from three in this game, but they found a way to get it inside. They found a way to get to the free throw line. Didn't make enough free throws in that second half, but made the clutch ones. KJ and Boswell there late. But you're right, Derek. Like, these are the games that you won't remember, but you'll appreciate if you're winning a Big Ten title, or, if you're in the NCAA tournament against a lower seed and you get in one of these games, you got to find a way when shots aren't falling. And I think you and I have covered, a winning program long enough to know this is a big win. To have this as a win when that 13-point second half lead got erased, to find a way to win that game, that's what championship contenders do.
They do, for sure. Yeah, I know that Maryland's been in the mix in the upper tier of the Big Ten. They just came here the other night and lost. And that's a squad that was 12th in the net prior to that game. So it's not, even though we like to look at matchups on paper, and Washington is going into this game even was thought to be the second worst team in the Big Ten on, going to the Ken Pom metrics and whatnot. But and that's not to say that it's not a reasonable criticism to say, heck, how come Illinois was up double digits at Northwestern and lost it, and at home against Tennessee or they're close and couldn't close it, and then this one made it far more sweaty than it probably needed to be. But you do have to make clutch plays. It's not always going to be easy. It's just kind of that natural swing of everything goes down in Eugene, and then tonight you had some quality looks that just didn't fall. So it's not anytime on the road in the Big Ten, you can't take anything for granted. You celebrate wins, you take them, you put them in your pocket, you go home and you're happy about it. So I surely you can pinpoint some different things they need to clean up. And Brad said, I will make sure that these sideline out of bounds get fixed. Like, it has to. And that was, I forget all the words that he used, but he was very displeased about that. But just in general, I felt like Illinois did some good things, like you said, defense, especially around the paint, and to be plus 22 points in the paint on a night when you didn't shoot it well. That's what you got to do. You got to get stops. And again, Clutch was, after that turnover, was a team that found a way to get it done.
All right, Derek, well, we got to talk about the negative here. I mean, you had a 13-point lead with 11:50 left, and it was a tie game with 52 seconds left or whatever it was. What led to that? What's your concern from that? Because we saw kind of the same thing against Northwestern. Tennessee didn't have that big of a lead, but you saw in the final moments just kind of whittling it away and kind of turning it over, right? Like that's kind of what it felt like is, are they going to just throw the ball away here at the end of the game? Kasparas obviously with some big plays, but what led to that 13-point lead just kind of getting whittled away there?
Yeah, as DJ was going off, and there were some struggles of staying through screens to be able to stick with him and contest shots, and that was something that even Kylan, Illinois' best defender, was getting hung up a little bit. And you give credit to a shooter who's in a mode like that. I mean, even though you get some quality looks like he did, like he stepped up and made them at a high rate, and it's a guy that so far this year is, I think going into tonight, was 27% from three, but he's got a long track record. He's a fifth-year guard. He's made almost 250 career threes. So Brad said tonight, afterwards, he didn't feel like they maybe gave him enough respect and had as much urgency to shut his water off. He's a second unit guy. But looking at it too, like midway through the second half, or as that thing started to get closer and closer and closer, you saw KJ hadn't scored in the second half, and the Kylan was 1 for 4 at the free throw line and missed some shots at the rim, which he's got to be able to make at a higher clip. So your guard duo, who we know does a lot of the heavy lifting for this team, is one of the primary reasons to really like the Illini this year, wasn't doing enough. That changed down the stretch, obviously, but that was part of it. And really, I mean, outside of Davis, Washington really wasn't doing a whole lot to you offensively. Ossibor had a pretty forgettable night in terms of his scoring, and
Breidenbach has like the second biggest run on you. Like, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no doubt. So really the problem was, like, when you weren't turning it over and giving them runouts, and you weren't letting DJ Davis get shots, like, you were right where you wanted to be defensively. It was just some of those other things that showed up too much and allowed them to crawl all the way back. And then just the giveaway by Trey on that inbounds was just far too easy in a clutch moment that could have killed you. I mean, imagine the sour feeling if that one leads to another basket and you walk out of here with a loss.
Why is this team pretty good at blob plays, baseline out of bounds, and terrible on sideline out of bounds? Like, I don't understand it. Like, they got to fix that, man. Like, in these clutch situations, it's just like they don't have somebody that you feel comfortable with the ball in their hands on that sideline.
For sure. Yeah, and I think you wonder if it gets evaluated as far as who the inbounder is. Trey was one of those guys in the Tennessee game that threw it away. Obviously, KJ had another one as well in that one. But you're right. I mean, they scored out of a handful of globs tonight on the baseline, but the sideline, for whatever reason, has been a tough thing for them to crack. It doesn't feel like it should be. It should be that an easy screen and free up, or if you blitz one side, you lob it up to maybe even like Tommy as like a last resort. The 7'1" guy can just go up and get it. But
it's just like, remember junior high basketball, you got the 4 stack and you kind of run around each other and somebody gets open. It just doesn't feel that complicated, but I guess it is.
I don't know. I'm with you. It's easier said than done for us on the sidelines and watching at home, but certainly it's got to get fixed, because that's just something that keeps sprouting up for this team and for Brad's squads. It seems like even carrying over years.
One of the biggest positives of this trip, and really the last month of basketball, I mean, we know how good Kasparas is. Kylan has been so good for most of the last month too, but Trey White, man, last 6 games, he's averaging 15.5 points per game. Just feels like he gives you that other dimension other than 3-point shots, right? Like, he's able to get to the rim, big body, just made some clutch buckets tonight. And then he's doing some of those Ty Rodgers things, right? He's rebounding, 7 rebounds tonight. And then what a clutch play defensively to steal it from DJ Davis, dive on that ball to force, I think it was a jump ball, right? In that situation, just a huge hustle play, winning place, but also gives you that scoring. Derek, this is what they envisioned, right? When they went out and got somebody despite having Ty Rodgers, and you're starting to see it come to fruition. Like, what is he giving this team right now?
Athletic plays to the basket for sure. Transition is something that he's able to do. And when he sees an open floor, it's allowed him to go to the rim and attack and be aggressive with that. Big turnaround jumper he made in that second half. You saw booty ball was becoming a thing again for Illinois. It's not like a possession after possession type of identity for them, but you're seeing Ben look for those, Trey a little bit. Even KJ and Kylan had a possession or two of that. So he's good in the mid-post area. He's good as the pull-up jump shot. Missed his 4 threes tonight, but on the whole, he's done a fine job of being able to make some of those looks for sure. But, yeah, like you said, it's some of the gritty hustle plays, the diving on the floor, getting the steal, and just like his mentality. He seems like a win it at any cost, do whatever – is required of me to contribute to winning and not need a consistent diet of like plays run for him or anything like that. So I like where he's at. And I even asked tonight, do you appreciate a little bit more being part of, winning basketball after last year? And not to dog on Louisville or anything, but he's like, yeah, this is what I wanted, finding a new home. And he's embracing it for sure.
I don't want to overlook this, like Kasparas' ability late in the game. I mean, it just looks so smooth, casual, getting to the rim, getting the layup to go ahead, sinking those 2 free throws. Kudos to Kylan, who was struggling 1 of 4 in that second half of the free throw line, which is uncharacteristic of him. I think he's a 70% free throw shooter. Trey missed a couple free throws. He's a 90% free throw shooter. But for KJ to hit those buckets and hit those free throws, he's just got ice in his veins. I just kind of wanted to see it earlier at some points in that game, but he had some clutch assists too. The one to Boswell with the touch pass. I mean, I just keep watching him, Derek, and I just keep going, holy crap. Like just some of the stuff he does as an 18-year-old. It's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and he gets people on an ISO and does that little like step back pump fake and then the little floater. And his teammates, a number of them said pretty much the same thing, is like he's a pro playing college basketball, and that even Trey tonight was like I sometimes have to remind myself that he's a freshman. Like that, an 18-year-old is having the want to for the ball in the moment, and I'm not saying he's not IO yet as far as the resume and everything, but I remember trying to frame the same question different ways when it would happen. You make late game plays. Okay, what allowed you to do this, or what did you see there? And I asked KJ again, like, I know we've tried to ask you it a ton, but like, how comfortable are you? He's like, I think that it just gets more. There's more stakes late in the game. The crowd's on their feet. We're on the road, and it just is something that I welcome and want. And I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's something that he's definitely not shying away from, and that's pretty impressive and obviously crucial for teams in late game moments to have a guy like that.
It's the great ones like an Io or Kasparas, that or Terrence, Domask, even those are the guys that they don't fear that moment. Like they don't see a downside of it. They want the ball and they go, I'm going to make this. And if I don't, oh, well, I'll do it again another time. Like it's just special to watch what he's doing. Dre Gibbs Lawhorns had a good trip too, Derek. And I know you caught up with him yesterday. It gave him a lot of energy off the bench. I mean, I know he got called for a foul. He did body, I think it was Asabor or whoever it was, on that dunk attempt. But the hustle to go down there and say, no, you're not scoring on me. You got to go to the free throw line. Love that. He had another stop on a fast break. We know what he can bring defensively, but 20 points in these 2 games off the bench in probably about 25, 30 minutes. It seems like he's settling, man, and giving you some offensive punch. Like you needed that. You need another guard off the bench and give you a scoring punch. So what have you seen from him in these 2 games?
The spin moves, man. The spin moves are sweet. He gets a guy on an island and can have the burst to be able to drive him and then change directions like that. It almost seems impossible without help to get there and really contest that shot. So is more under control. That's something that Brad's been harping on and talking about him recently, is just good, decisive decision-making and is not playing too sporadic. So Dre's given a lot of credit to the work he's been doing in practice and just some individual work. I know with Daishan and a couple other guys on staff to just hone in on his game. He's a very talented player. He's got a lot of physical attributes that play well, and he's getting to a point where Brad said tonight, I got to find more and more ways to get him out there. the 3-guard lineup with KJ, Kylan, and Dre is something he said he's going to continue to look at. But it's consistent energy. It's that roll off the bench. And Dre told us yesterday the biggest thing that I'm saying to myself is I need to find a way to be consistent so they know what they're getting from me game in and game out. And the last really bragging rights starting and that game and the 3 afterwards, you know what Dre's bringing when he goes on the court. And when Kylan was in foul trouble in the first half, he didn't really have that drop off when he went in there. That said a lot for him for sure.
I want to mention this guy didn't shoot well tonight after a breakout night the other night. But Ben Humrickhouse, I thought there was a toughness to him tonight, and there was an aggression on the glass that I love to see. He had 6 rebounds, which is the most for him in a while. Had 7 points, 2 of 9 shooting, shot 1 of 5 from 3. So, but he shot it confidently. But I just thought he battled with Asabor and just gave you some aggression on the glass that I haven't seen from him in a while. So I thought this was a good trip for him too there.
No doubt. Yeah. And Illinois in general has impressed me recently with how well they contested the rim. And that's something that obviously Ben, Tommy, Merez all deserve great credit for. I mean, Oregon was like, I think 11 for 25 at the rim in that game. Washington, I think, was 10 for 18. And just to see Asabor go 2 for 8 and not do a whole lot inside against them was a big deal. So I think that the next step for him probably defensively is being able to – and you're going to have some mobility limitations, but can he get out on some guys that can make some threes? Some of it's of course, they're playing a numbers game. They want some guys to shoot these shots because of the statistics that going into the game say that, hey, if we let these guys take them, then we're probably going to be in a good spot. But around the rim, I think, more toughness, walling up and be able to contest some shots. And maybe, a little bit more on the perimeter of that extra step on a closeout or whatever it might be. But I do think that this has been a really encouraging, even like you said, without making shots today, that this trip is a big deal for his confidence and seeing real signs of life out of him.
2-point field goal percentage defense for Illinois, 11th in the country at 43.1%. Like that's, again, it's just way better than I thought it would be. Will Riley only played 25 minutes on this trip, Derek. Part of that's Trey White, right? Like you can't take him off the court right now. Will did finish at the rim today, but what do you make of him moving forward? Like, what does he need to do to get some of those minutes back other than obviously just make shots?
I think that when you look back earlier in the year, one thing that's kind of been missing is some of his offensive rebounding impact or just doing some other things than just ball in the hand, go make a bucket. So that's something that I think can allow to help him just do some role player stuff outside of making shots that can maybe get him out there. I know defense, of course, is going to be important as well, but I think it's whatever the process is or how and maybe you just got to play through it. Trying to have the game slow down a little bit and not over dribbling and not trying to do too much or get caught off balance. He short armed a little like floater finish in the lane. And there's probably some nerves or just some pressing right now on a guy that's fighting it. Yep. And I still expect him at some point to have a night, and it could be sooner than later because there really weren't a lot of Ben Humrickhouse signs of breakout until Oregon. So could it come out of the blue in a way for Riley as well? Yes. But, you got to just keep working through it. And similar to Ben, just put the work in, trust the process. But in the meantime, maybe it is trying to do some of those other things than just be like, okay, my whole value is in whether I'm getting buckets or not.
Right. All right, Derek. So I'm looking at, this recent run for Illinois. I mean, 4 of the last 5 games, you beat Wisconsin by 6. You lost to Tennessee at home by 2. You beat Missouri. You beat Oregon and crush them. You beat Washington. 4 or 5 wins against high major opponents here. And I just kind of zoom out, and it just feels like these guys are kind of settling in. Like they're starting to gel. Like we're seeing it happen before our eyes with Trey White stepping up, Dre Gibbs-Allhorn giving you something consistently off the bench. Humrickhouse finally starting to have a couple good games back together. Even Ivisic, like, was kind of a go-to guy early on. Just feels like now he's a supporting player, but he's rebounding the ball really well. He just leaves a lot short on those post-ups. It's not his strength yet. He had some good looks late. I just didn't love him. I didn't love running, having a possession end in shots with him when White and KJ were playing so well. But where do you see this team in its process of kind of gelling and kind of just becoming a team? Because it was kind of a bunch of pieces feeling each other out early.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty encouraging here the last couple of weeks and the identity that they're forming. And we continue to talk about, yes, they give up 77 to not a very good offense in Washington, but for the most part, I feel like their defense still much further ahead than I would have expected. Like I think you said it after the Oregon game, feels like a tougher team than you probably would have expected early on in the year. So they've got some of that for sure. But just in terms of individual guys settling into roles of what's expected out of them, how to find ways to impact what Trey's been doing and how he seems to be really understanding of what he needs to do for this team, and to hear that he's being more vocal as a leader, that's really encouraging. Dre recently, that's been great. Obviously Ben as well. So just more and more, this is a team that, like you said, kind of knows who it is, knows how to get the production they need, and I think we're seeing a deeper team here recently too because of some of those things. Like Jake Davis has been a guy who can go out there, and I know it doesn't get you much in terms of production tonight, but someone that can fill some minutes and look like he belongs on the court and do some dirty work plays out there as well. So, and then I think offensively they've added a few more layers. Like I think that ball screen or bust was kind of where this team was at after Tennessee, and I think you're seeing a little bit more pace and transition as a way to find some production, and then also opening up some of the high-low with Merez and Tommy when they're in there, and then some booty ball too. So just a few more avenues that have opened up, I think, offensively.
Yeah, Trey and Ben getting some of those looks tonight and that booty ball action tonight. It felt like when Illinois could get out and run, when they were getting stops, like Washington really didn't have much of a chance. And let's get some super chats here. We got a couple of them. We appreciate everyone watching live on our YouTube channel. Def says, felt like Washington just dictated the pace the last 10 minutes and told the Illini what this game was. We knew that's what they would want to do, right, Derek? That's the most frustrating. We were killing them with fresh bodies and pace. Even a couple weeks ago, we lose this game. Yeah, I mean that was encouraging. This felt like the game you were going to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory here, Derek, but you did find a way to kind of close it out here. But Washington did dictate that pace late in the game.
Yeah, they slowed it down a lot for sure. And I think that after Illinois came out early and really established that comfortable lead or just comfortable enough in the early going, you noticed that Washington was really getting into Illinois offensively and handsy with their pressure and being able to get steals and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, for Davis to keep making those threes, it was something Illinois just couldn't shut his water off and allowed him to keep rolling on. But it was going away where this was potentially going to be such a demoralizing defeat, but stepped up and made the plays that you needed to make. And a home team in particular in league play is never easy to put away. And even though the Illini had a good crowd like that this place got rowdy late. This place got really going with some Washington faithful and a more intimate environment here. It's one of the older places in college basketball, but it got loud, and you got to step up and make the plays needed for sure.
Is it comparable to the Barn? I
think so. Yeah. I had that thought as well. Kind of the old brick look on the outside made me think of the Barn as well.
I mean, just looking at it from the outside on TV, it looked like it was like a Huff Hall,
right.
Really tiny there, but I think they fit in 10,000. And the other thing we got to look at, Derek, 3 of your first Big Ten games are on the road, and you're 3-1. Like, that's not easy, no matter who you play, even if it's a Washington team we don't think is going to go that far. Let's get some more. Rick C says, it seems like when opposing teams have a guy down on the floor on the opposite end, we don't push the ball and take advantage of a 5-on-4. Is that too critical? Safe travels there. What do you think, Derek?
I think at times we've seen them not be as urgent in pushing it. There's times where KJ, I feel like, gets the ball and wants to slow into setting up the pick and roll. And
you mentioned that Kylan pushes it better, I think, in transition.
It feels that way, yeah. And I think that Kylan is really talented. Not that KJ isn't of playing, but Kylan just kind of has that that motor to immediately want to get up the floor and be aggressive with it. And I don't know if it's within the design to kind of settle into what you're going to do. And but I think it's a fair point. I've noticed it at times in the past, and while we've talked about they've played with more pace in general recently, that is something that you want to keep the foot on the gas there, especially when you got numbers. So I'm sure they'll look at that and continue to try to get KJ up the floor with that urgency.
Because it definitely unlocks, I think, Boswell, White, and Dre as drivers, right, to the rim. But it also unlocks maybe Ben. If you got to pull it back out and whip it back out, Ben's there. Tommy, I think, is really comfortable doing those things. So I do think we've seen it a little bit more lately, but I think they can push that pace a little bit more. Def 999 super chat. Even for losses, I find myself questioning the Hawk Harrelson will to win as a full team much less than previous years. I'd often rather question brains than heart. I would agree with that for the most part. And again, that's kind of what surprises me about this team early on, and why I give credit for Brad Underwood and his staff for not only recruiting talent, but recruiting guys that can fit in and want to win. Like in this NIL era, I mean, you can see Trey White wants to win and Colin Boswell wants to win. And Kasparas isn't just playing to score 30 points and impress NBA scouts. Like, he's defending, he's rebounding. Like, this team is a really competitive team.
Yeah, and that's something they very much evaluate in the recruiting process and think about motivating factors for certain players, how much they will be bought into trying to win and make those plays beyond just scoring as well. So again, to go back, I do feel like this is more of a gutsy team than you maybe thought going in, because I think some of that is questioned naturally for a team that hasn't played a lot together, that is very new to college basketball and young, and just, you know, how much mental fortitude do they have? How much do they just know how to make those plays? So I think that's for sure. But yeah, I just like the vibes are good around the team in terms of the buy-in collectively, the lack of, you know, it needs to be me doing this and that. There's a lot of guys that appreciate the talent. It could be anybody's night, and just to make different plays, not always the flashy ones to win.
An alarm just went off in my head. We just got the Derek Piper midseason vibe check in Illinois, and it's good.
It's good. Why wouldn't it be?
Eric's pretty good at this the last couple of years. He's been pretty good reading the vibes. RBC Bradley, thanks to the Piper family for letting him go so far from home. I agree with that. Appreciate the coverage. Joey and I are the same way with our bowl trip. But what do you think of the Pacific Northwest, Eric? What do you think of the two new Big Ten members here?
It's pretty cool, no doubt, to see some new places. Seattle, I've enjoyed just being around a little bit and see the view off the lake. Lake Union, I believe is what it's called. It's really, really beautiful. All the boats and whatnot that I certainly can't afford. Maybe for a day that I could take out there, but enjoyed some crab cakes last night, a little bit of some clam chowder as well. And you see it's funny, in Oregon, I was telling my Uber driver on the way to the airport, I was like, man, look at the mountains, the tall trees. And he's like, hey buddy, those aren't mountains, those are hills. I'm like, where I come from, those are mountains. Okay. Yeah. Or just, whatever, forgive me, the flatlander that I am, but yeah, no, it's all good. And I am excited though to get back to the family and playing some snow once I drive through it, which, as you know, is not always my favorite.
It is not. So definitely safe travels tomorrow, Derek, on your way back home. But before you do, next week, I think it's another big couple games here. I mean, all of them in the Big Ten are, but this is come home and take care of business. But Penn State, I couldn't believe it when I looked it up. I can, but the numbers are still crazy. The Illinois has lost 4 straight to them. A lot of that had to do with Jalen Pickett. But even last year, I think it was the worst loss of the year against Penn State last year. You've lost 10 of 14 to Penn State. That seems insane to me. But they gave Indiana a good game. I know Malik Renew was not in there, but they beat Purdue at home. Now, they've only played one true road game so far, but this is a frisky team. And Mike Rhodes is a really good coach. Penn State continues to make good hires, it feels like, for their head coaches. So what do you make of this matchup in USC on Saturday? This is where, if you want to again, be a Big Ten contender and chase a Big Ten championship, take care of these two and start stacking these wins together.
Yeah, it's a big opportunity. Brad has really the main theme that he keeps harping on is it's time for us to build some momentum. And I think some other guys have focused on consistency and trying to, they have a high standard for who they think they are as a team. They know they got to bring it every night and be able to stack these wins, which 4 in a row is really good, a 3-1 start. But now you return home where you should hold serve. Penn State, I tab them as my kind of sleeper team in the Big Ten. I think that they're tricky because they brought back 4 of their 5 starters from last year. Of course, they beat you at Rec Hall, and Ace Baldwin's a really good point guard, two-way player that is gritty, and could imagine him on KJ or Kyle on either one and trying to give him some problems. It's a team that can shoot the 3-ball pretty well. They got some good shooters like Zach Hicks, and I know today I didn't see much of the Indiana game, but I saw at one point they were like 0 for 11 from 3. So one of those games where maybe some shots from the outside don't fall. If they do, I'm not saying they have Andrew Funk and Seth Lundy like we saw the Shrewsbury squad have, but it's a very quality basketball team. And you hope, even if you are trying to like mentality-wise dialed in, like there is a physical part of it too, coming back from a road swing. And Brad even mentioned today a part of maybe not shooting it at the same level is we're laying around in the hotel all day and we've got this long trip and you're starting to feel it a little bit. Now you go back home, it's kind of a quicker turn to have another game on Wednesday. So you got to be up for it and bring that energy and intensity for sure. So, but no doubt, I mean, especially USC, definitely one you should get. They're full of entirely new roster pieces and got a steep hill to climb this year to even be competitive. Penn State, though, can be tricky if you let them hang around in particular.
Yeah, the one thing I keep thinking about, Derek, is, you take a 2-0 West Coast trip every time. But I just think the schedule, even though 3 or 4 of your first Big Ten games are on the road, like the fact that this was during your break, like I think was a nice little schedule break for Illinois, because to take your biggest road swing and have it all kind of, while you're not having in school, you don't have any other distractions right now after the holidays. I think that was a really good thing for this program. But before we get you home, Derek, any final thoughts from the Pacific Northwest in this trip?
How much snow we got?
I'm a little norther than you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys got hit pretty hard. From
Is that right? Okay. I do know the team was trying to rush it out of here to get back. So pregame, they were like, yeah, we hope to go back after the game. If we had to, we could stay overnight, but they're rushing back there. So we'll be all good. But no, I definitely agree with that point. Like you said, you missed out on, which I almost regret tweeting the curtains in the second level for Oregon, because Oregon fans gotten those mentions and we're defending and whatnot the day after the Rose Bowl. And I wasn't trying to start a fight there, but you did maybe schedule that one pretty conveniently to not get a lot of those Duck supporters. And yeah, I mean, not to say, Illinois shoots the ball like that, you could pack 100,000 in there, they'd still win the game. So yeah, I think it's been very encouraging for Illinois, where they're at in the net, where they're at solidified in the Big Ten race, being a little bit more steady and consistent than I thought they would be at this point in the season. So it's all been very good. And
Derek, we can both celebrate that Joey is miserable today.
Yes.
Packers lose.
Yeah.
Bears found some way to win that stupid game. Just ridiculous. But man, I just feel good for Caleb to get a win, to make some big plays down the stretch. It was such an ugly game, and I can't believe they're going to lose this again. But to find a way to get a win. Now go get me a good head coach. That's all.
Yes. I saw New England wants to be very much in that pursuit as well. Let's not mess up what we're trying to do. I would hope that Caleb is the bigger attraction than Drake May, although I understand that he's played well too. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, anytime Joey, we love him, but yeah, he's miserable about the Bears beating his team. It's probably the only time that's happened since I've known him. So I appreciate this opportunity to bask in his misery.
It's probably true, because Joey joined the beat in like 18, I think. And it was the last time we beat the Packers. So
jeez.
Who's your head coach for the Bears?
Just make it simple. Ben Johnson.
I mean, it should be. Is he going to be? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't know.
Actually hire.
I don't know. Richie and I out here have been talking about it, and I think the consensus thought for Bears fans is that whatever they do will probably be the wrong choice. But I think Ben Johnson should want it, and I think that they'll get it done. Let's think optimistically.
I am all in on an offensive guy. I know that can be wrong because the offensive guy could be wrong, right? Like we did that with Matt Nagy, who might get another job, by the way. And I think it is time. I think he should get a second chance because his tenure doesn't look so bad. No, look back on it. Isn't that crazy? But yeah, Ben Johnson or Cliff Kingsbury to me feels like the one. If you don't get the one, you go to the other one, especially with his relationship there with Caleb Williams. It's hard for me to get excited about any defensive guy. It really is. Can we just do this the normal way that most franchises do it? But I know you can mention Jim Harbaugh, you can mention John Harbaugh, excuse me. You can mention Mike Tomlin, a bunch of guys. I just don't trust the Bears to get that right.
No, and I don't know. It is getting a little exhausting right now. Just how many names are thrown out there and connections to this. Like, I understand
that guy. Like for once, can we just get the top guy?
Yeah, exactly. So I understand the reporting side of it. Like, if there's a head coaching vacancy, you got to have a hot board and all the different possibilities. But like, do I have to care that Brian Flores and Ryan Poles were on the same Boston College team? Like, I don't want to. And I'm with you. It should be an offensive head coch.
So it'll be Anthony Weaver, the Miami Dolphins defense coordinator. That's exactly right.
They have it. The highest paid staff member should elevate the most important player on your franchise, and that's your quarterback. And
love it.
Let's do it.
Derek Piper, thank you for spending the time out there and covering this for us. We appreciate it. Get home safe, man.
Will do, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
All right, everybody have a great night. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer Podcast.